Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to episode 28 of the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And, as Aaron and I discussed in our 2011 year-end wrap-up, we want to provide more of an increased focus in 2012 on not only the technologies around cloud computing, but really the ways in which cloud is changing our industries, how people are changing, how process and business is changing, beyond just the technology. So on today's show, we're really excited to be joined by Bob Olwig, Vice President of Business Strategy and Marketing at Worldwide Technology. Sometimes people know that as WWT, one of the largest and leading VARs in our industry. So Bob's going to come on today, and we're going to talk about the changing landscape for VARs in terms of how they're interacting with customers, how the evolution of cloud technology is impacting them in good ways and potentially new opportunities. So Bob, thanks for coming on today. Great to have you.
Hey, Brian, thanks for the invite. Glad to be here, and hope you're doing well.
I'm doing really well. So for people that may not be familiar with WWT or may not know you, can you give us a little bit of background on both yourself and the company?
Sure. I started with, believe it or not, McDonnell Douglas about 30 years ago, and for the past 15 years, I've been with Worldwide Technology, leading up a team of business consultants, technology consultants, and business development managers that help our field sales organizations with clients. And for the past 4 years, I've kind of had a side job of working very closely with our CEO, Jim Kavanaugh, in helping drive our strategy and our expansion into the data center marketplace. For those people that may not know who Worldwide is, we're not necessarily a brand name out there, but we did just close out 2011, and we exceeded $4 billion in top-line revenue, so we're very excited about that. We've grown to nearly 1,800 employees around the United States primarily, but we do have a global presence in China and Singapore, Brazil, Mexico, and just last week we opened up our first office in London, so we're excited about that. And Brian, I think we go back a ways. And many people probably know Worldwide most notably because of our major partnership that we have with Cisco. We resell nearly $2 billion a year annually, and we're happy to be recognized by Cisco as being one of their largest partners in the world.
Okay, well, good. And the reason I reached out to you guys is obviously you and I have known each other for a little while. Worldwide's always been an interesting company to me because. And we'll get into this in the discussion, but not only are you guys aligned to some of the biggest vendors in the industry, both in terms of the data center space, which obviously aligns to cloud computing, but also in collaboration and communication. So you guys have a very good feel for trends and strategies that the Ciscos and the HPs and the EMCs and NetApps and Microsofts of the world have. And then the other piece that's always been really interesting is you guys have you've at least, visible to me and to others, you've got a really active, vibrant set of very, very smart people that are sort of being the face of your company. So like Joe Onasek's been on our show before, Chris Fendia, you guys have got folks all over the country. So I think, I hope folks will find that the conversation, you guys not only have a really good pulse on the industry, a really good pulse on where vendors are going, but you guys are doing some pretty innovative things that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that are helping your customers change their business models, change how they're using technology. So I'm excited about the conversation.
Brian, and thank you for the kind remarks about our people. And just to acknowledge that, I'll tell you that is what we believe really our key differentiator is that we're hiring very smart, very team-oriented people like the Joe Onasek's of the world. So we definitely appreciate you calling that out. And we are somewhat uniquely positioned in the industry. We grew up historically as a very solid Cisco partner, especially around unified communications and core route and switch. And as I said earlier, working with Jim, we really strategically have focused on growing our data center practice, and that's where Joe Onesek resides, and that's where a lot of familiarity recently, Brian, from you is around our entree into cloud computing and helping our clients understand these different forces that are going on in the market related to these pod infrastructures and virtualization and cloud computing. So, and much of the hiring that we've done In fact, we've hired over 330 people last year, and we plan on hiring again that many this year. Most of them are customer or client-facing people in our business development, in our technical pre-sales, and our professional services delivery. And a lot of them are aligned around these new technologies, including cloud.
Okay, good. Well, so let's start by talking about the markets. So you're seeing, let's talk about how are you guys seeing the evolution of your customers' business environments, both in the United States as well as outside the U.S. That business environment being impacted by technology, but also technology being a driver for them looking at new ways to do business.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is certainly all of our customers are feeling the impact of the economy and kind of the direction the economy is going in. And what that really boils down to is I think our customers are a lot more diligent about their IT spend, and they're focusing more on high impact projects that can affect from a cost savings perspective. So virtualization continues to play in that in terms of server consolidation or data center consolidation. So certainly customers have an eye towards savings and being efficient about their IT computing. I think another area that more from a opportunity perspective is that clients are seeing some very large business drivers or technology drivers that are occurring in the marketplace. The consumerization of IT, mobility, and then cloud computing. I think customers are all looking at that with an eye towards, okay, what's it really mean? How can it really affect my enterprise? And how do we get ahead of those trends in the technology? For example, the proliferation of mobile devices is becoming a huge headache for a lot of CIOs and VPs of IT. Their employees are bringing these devices into their enterprises. They're basically telling IT, hey, you have to deal with these devices. This is how I do my job now. This is how I stay connected to my fellow employees and to my customers and so forth. So that's one of those trends that customers are really looking to worldwide to help them kind of sort through that. And as you know, mobile devices are connecting back into data center applications that are typically being transformed around using new cloud technologies and so forth. So many of these trends are all interrelated. And a big part of what Worldwide's doing is consulting with these clients on the challenges that they face and where they want to go in terms of the technology. For many customers, moving all the way to a public cloud infrastructure doesn't make sense for them. So oftentimes we're working with them just to build out their private cloud infrastructures to support these mobile applications or mobile devices and so forth. So from a broad market perspective, there's a lot of commonality that I talked about in terms of those big market drivers of consumerization of IT and mobility and cloud. They span the three major markets that we're in, which include kind of the large federal U.S. government, Fortune 1000 customers are another segment, and then service providers like AT&T are a third segment that we align our sales teams around.
Okay, so several years ago, the role of the VAR in some cases was a fulfillment function. That's obviously changed quite a bit over the years, but we're starting to see more and more technologies converge. We're seeing, infrastructure not be its own silo. The applications are becoming. There's some, blurring of those lines. What's the new? What in 2012? What's the role of the VAR? What do your customers expect you to solve for them versus, maybe what a large, business process change company? What do your customers come to you asking for you to do these days?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think our customers want us to help educate them on the technologies that are available. Frankly, they could go to any one of the large partners that we have, and they can get a briefing on a particular technology. But oftentimes, the discrete manufacturers around perhaps storage or compute or networking can't really help a customer figure out how it all works together. So for me, it's really about going back a number of years, and unfortunately, like I said, I've been in the industry for a long time. I think the role of a VAR, in worldwide in particular, is that of becoming a true systems integrator, where we can help clients, cipher through all of the choices that they have and help them understand how these technologies are going to work together. And what we've invested in are smart people and consultants that can have that conversation. But we've also developed some processes around workshops and assessments that methodically take our clients through that road map or that journey that they need to go through. And then finally, a significant investment that we've made in the last few years is in our Advanced Technology Center, where we're able to actually demonstrate and show our customers how these diverse sets of technologies can work together, whether that's in a converged infrastructure format, or whether that's showing unified communications working across video and things like that. So Worldwide's invested in a lot of different areas, but first and foremost, it's around helping our clients understand what the technology can do for them and solve their specific problems.
Okay. So you brought up your Advanced Technology Center, which, as I understand it, is a facility or multiple facilities where people can, where you've got the actual technology set up and running. So you've got multiple stacks, the converged integrated stacks. You've got multiple types of technology actively running. People can come in, they can proof of concept things, they can see things demonstrated. How much have you seen change? I mean, that's a big investment, but B, it's a big change in terms of being able to show people, let them touch it, let them feel it, feel confident in it. How much was that driven by your customers or you feeling like you needed a competitive edge versus what goes on in say like public cloud computing with software as a service, where it's literally like I can go out and play around with stuff all day long and I can get to it immediately. Were those two things sort of both driving it, or was one driving things more than the other for those types of investments?
I think, good question, Brian. I think that the whole vision for the ATC really, quite frankly, came from our CEO, Jim Kavanaugh. And the ATC for us is not just the physical classroom, infrastructure that you see in a lot of, manufacturers, executive briefing centers and so forth. We certainly have that. We have nearly $20 million worth of equipment in our ATC. But what Jim Kavanaugh's vision is that we want to take this infrastructure with different environments for doing on-demand demonstrations and proof of concepts to delivering very highly customized proof of concepts for specific client needs. We wanted to take that infrastructure but open it up to our broad set of field engineers, technical architects, consulting systems engineers that are out in the field, so that they can use our ATC as a learning environment, as a test bed environment to hone their skills and sharpen their ability to have better conversations with customers. The other thing is that we have opened it up to our partners like Cisco, and we allow them to come in and see and use technology that they may not be able to get out of Cisco's own CPOC centers that they have. Because sometimes we're offering a variety of converged infrastructure components that Cisco by themselves don't necessarily sell. For example, the storage or other elements that just isn't part of the Cisco portfolio. So our ATC is bigger than just the software and the hardware that we have. It's about creating an ecosystem where we can collaborate and share ideas and very quickly bring these solutions to our customers and to our partners, and frankly prove it to them that these technologies can work and can help them solve some of the business problems that they're facing.
Okay, so there's a certain level of kind of like operational eat your own dog food. You're going out, you're asking customers to make changes, to bring together technologies, and you guys can literally point to something that you say, look, we use it for sales, we use it for training, we use it for partnering and interoperability, and you can sort of validate all that with your customers. That's got to be pretty huge.
Yes.
Excellent. So I want to come back to something that you were hitting on when we were talking about customers, their demands, their changes. WWT had a good-sized practice, and I think probably still has a pretty good-sized practice that was around unified communications and back when it was just voice over IP and IP telephony. A big piece of that was not only technology change, right? So convergence of voice and data, but there was a lot of people change going on there, right? Which teams were going to be in charge of technologies? How could new efficiencies come out of that? How many parallels do you see between those things that went on 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and what we're seeing happen in the data center around virtualization, people talking about private cloud? Do you guys find a lot of parallels there, or are there some key differences you've seen?
No, Brian, you're spot on. We're seeing a lot of parallels happening there. Back then it was about, convergence around voice and data. And, there was a lot of change management that had to go on. And if you fast forward to around converged infrastructure and these pod architectures, the real benefit that clients are going to get out of it is if they consolidate and converge their operational teams to work around this converged platform rather than the discrete silos that they have today. And what that practically means is that you're going to have the storage guys needing to work and collaborate with the server team, who's going to have to work and collaborate with the network team. So the technology is really forcing changes within organizations that they're not always comfortable with. There are many people in these organizations that have been living and breathing storage for many, many years, and now they're having to embrace and open their mind to this converged infrastructure where storage and compute and the network fabric and this thing called virtualization all needs to work together. And I think the leading companies, the leading IT organizations that we work with, and I can think of a couple of service providers and a couple of leading financial services companies up in New York, they're embracing that, and they're paying a lot of attention to the change management, the changes that need to go on within their organizations to truly take advantage of the technology.
Okay. Now, talking about changes, talking about, people being hesitant to make organizational change or learn new skills, you guys have obviously been reasonably successful, or you could argue very, very successful, in getting some of these converged technologies deployed. What are you finding as you're talking to, whether it's technologists or whether you're talking to the business leaders, what are the best or most successful kind of initial steps to get them to go, okay, how do I move from where I am today to these these sort of converged environments, converged teams? How do you get them started? What's the right steps?
That very good question, because we have evolved as a company, Brian, and we go back a ways. And when I started 15 years ago, we did a lot of traditional VAR things, in terms of product fulfillment and solid customer service in terms of our ability to quote and process orders and deliver things on time and so forth. Today it's all about a customer service function that centers around truly understanding what the customer is trying to accomplish as it relates to these new technologies. So of the 330 people that we hired last year, many of them are really client-facing experts, technologists, architects who we're employing to have these conversations with customers. And we're not leaving anything to chance. We've actually created a methodology that involves packaged workshops and packaged assessment services that allows us to have a facilitated conversation and discovery sessions with customers to truly understand what they're trying to do. And then, based on that information, we can sort through it and taking what we call an AIM approach, or architecturally independent multi-vendor approach, we're able to piece together and design a solution from all these various manufacturers that are out there that have great technology and pull it together for that particular customer's needs. So I think our evolution as a VAR and a true systems integrator is our ability to have those meaningful conversations with customers early on in their projects and with a broad set of people within their organization, as I said earlier, with the storage people, the server people, the virtualization, the network people. We sometimes are a better facilitator of pulling those discrete organizations together in a workshop or an assessment than sometimes those clients are able to do themselves.
Okay. And you sort of highlighted, and you've mentioned this a couple times now, and I kind of want to prod into it a little bit since my day job involves working for a vendor. You talked about the things that you guys do as a very full-service VAR/systems integrator in terms of showcasing technology, in terms of being able to have these very complete conversations with your customers. And like, what do you find, and this doesn't have to be any vendor in particular, but there's a translation that has to happen between vendors talking about their widgets, their features, their technologies, which you guys then have to take, translate, put them into solution-centric context. What are you finding is missing from vendors sort of shortchanging themselves, not helping you help your customers be successful? Are there things that you find are more successful, are still really lacking from the vendors and the technology people?
It's a good question. I would say that, first of all, the vendors and the manufacturer reps that we work with and their associated, systems engineers and technical architects, I mean, we're honored to be working with and being partnered with the best of the best. And they're just rock solid technologists and account managers and client execs and so forth. I think the limitation that they have is that they don't always have the full portfolio of technology that they can bring to bear, for a particular client, right? So, there's two very solid storage partners that we work with that are fantastic, but they don't necessarily have the compute element or the networking element or the UC element or whatever it may be. So I think it's our job worldwide as a systems integrator to not only integrate the technologies for customers, but also integrate the account planning and the account strategy of how these best-of-breed manufacturers can work with a leading integrator like Worldwide to have one conversation with a client or a CIO or a VP of IT where we collectively bring all the resources that we can bring to bear and have a more meaningful conversation with that customer. That's what I think is exciting about the role that Worldwide has today. We're partnered with great technology companies, and we both value the capabilities that we can bring to bear, and where we're having the most success with customers is where all of the OEMs are getting together and we're collaborating, whether it's on in a structured way, where some of the alliances have created a more formal structure around partnering together, and some of them are less formal, but it all comes down to the account management and field teams working together to create an integrated plan or strategy for that client.
Okay. That makes sense. It's sort of you help them kind of blend the maybe gaps they might have in their portfolio across the different partners that you work with. They may be technology partners themselves, but you guys can blend that, fill those gaps, blend those things, and the presentation out to the customers and to business problems looks very, very holistic. Right, and create a holistic or a more comprehensive solution that thinks through all of the various elements of the solution for our customer, so that we're not missing out on something maybe from a positive perspective that it will help some other technology or downstream process, or a lot of times we're kind of looking out for the customer that we're not inadvertently doing something in a certain area that could have a negative impact downstream. Okay. So, we've talked about some of the evolutionary things that you guys have done. You've gone from, pure technology and fulfillment. You now provide a lot of those services directly out of your warehouses so people can customize what they want. You guys can control your supply chains to a certain extent. You've got facilities to highlight not only the technologies but your operational skills. Let's talk a little bit about kind of how cloud computing becomes that next thing to figure out. So the systems integrator VAR industry is always going through some level of either consolidation or expansion. There's been a couple of noteworthy ones here in the last 3 months of people that you guys compete with. But the one that's kind of more interesting to me is customers now have another choice, if you will, where they can look at software as a service to take care of some of the things that maybe they used to have in-house. And that's an option, but I know you guys have had some partnerships, some relationships with service providers where you're trying to build some blended services. Can you talk about that, how you see that as an opportunity, a challenge, a value to your customers, or where you see those types of partnerships going between service providers and the systems integrators and VARs that have direct customer relationships and contacts?
Sure. I think the cloud computing and software as a service, the whole notion of providing capabilities as a utility, isn't really anything new, and it's been around for a while. I think the speed at which things can be delivered, I think the ubiquitous nature of the internet providing kind of low-cost access to these remote services and so forth make it very different than how it was 10, 20 years ago around mainframe computing and things like that. But I think it's all about customer choice. And we have partnered with service providers. We have a great partnership in place with Savis, a local St. Louis company where our headquarters is at. And we want to have that ability to offer a client software as a service or cloud infrastructure as a service as part of our overall portfolio. Because the fact is, Brian, we're having these, as I said earlier, these conversations, we're having workshops and assessments where we're uncovering what the client's trying to do, and we don't want to shortchange that client by not being able to propose or offer software as a service, as an example, as part of our portfolio, if that's what the client really needs. So in reality, many times we'll start out having client conversations where they think they want to go to a public cloud. And in reality, when we talk about perhaps maybe some security concerns or compliance issues around, auditing and so forth, they kind of come back around and say, let's keep, maybe public cloud computing on the roadmap for this particular application, but let's map the next steps for the next few years where we'll build out a private cloud for that particular application until those security concerns clear up in the public cloud or whatever it may be. So for us, the partnership, for example, with Savis is very important because we want to provide a holistic solution to a client. The other thing that we're benefiting from as it relates to the public cloud service providers is that we have many of them as clients today. Even before the cloud was in vogue, so to speak, we had been providing a lot of supply chain services and configuration and staging services for them going back many, many years. Today, because they're expanding their revenue opportunities with additional, services and software as a service or infrastructure as a service, it's only affording Worldwide more opportunity to provide them more components and elements that are building out their internal infrastructures.
Okay. And there's probably, I'm guessing, opportunities for you to take some of those best practices you learned from service providers that deal with different scale and potentially bring those back to your enterprise customers, your government customers, and sort of share some knowledge both ways?
You bet. And that's one of the challenges as an executive here at Worldwide, where my team is somewhat responsible for ensuring that we're collaborating and sharing these best practices that we're learning. And we're working with some of the best federal agencies that are out there doing innovative things. We're working with these service providers that are building these massive scalable infrastructures, and we're working with Fortune 100 or 1,000 customers, including large financial institutions that have spend literally billions of dollars on their IT infrastructure. What a great position to be in, to be able to see the insides of all these different types of organizations, infrastructures, the variety of technologies. What we're excited about is we get to kind of see the best of the best, and then we're able to kind of share those best practices internally and bring those new ideas, bring what's working for another client into a new client's infrastructure. It's really exciting, and I know many of our technical architects and consulting systems engineers, love the variety of, major accounts and large clients that we work with.
Okay, very cool. Well, we're getting very close to sort of the end here. I'll leave you with one last question. Since it's the beginning of the new year, you guys, you in particular, get to talk to people sort of across industries and across technologies. Any guesses or predictions for maybe that one breakout technology, that one breakout trend that we're going to be talking about at the end of 2012?
I think that there's several trends, and that's a hard one to always nail down, the one, Brian. But I would say, the continued consumerization of IT around these mobile devices and helping our customers secure those mobile devices and really enable them to access the enterprise applications and so forth, I think is an emerging trend. I think that big data is going to be significant this year. I think as enterprises start to understand what that really means, they see the opportunity to tap into new sources of revenue and analytics that can provide themselves and their customers, better information to make decisions. And I think you will see, financial institutions, monetize some of that information and start building out capabilities to actually charge and provide additional services to their clients. And I think VDI truly may take off this year. I know it seems like everybody's prognosticating for the past 4 or 5 years that this is the year of VDI, but I think we're starting to see some real strong pilots and large customers starting to really deploy VDI. And I think you've got the backing of a company like a Cisco with some of the architectural approach around VXI that's raising the visibility to VDI and how it really can truly be deployed within enterprises. So not one big prediction for this year, Brian, but those are my thoughts in terms of what 2012 will bring.
Okay, so very cool. So some things around the stuff that's going to touch our end users, and then some things that are going to touch what goes on with the information in the back end and hopefully helps folks either monetize it or make better business decisions. Well, very cool. Bob, thank you so much for the time today and the conversation. We're out of time this week. You can follow us on Twitter at thecloudcastnet. You can reach us at thecloudcast.net on the web, where you'll find links to the show. Leave us a comment, leave us an email, or stream the show on Stitcher. Bob, thanks again for being on. Hopefully we get a chance to have this conversation later in the year. We'll see how accurate we were in our predictions. And thanks to everybody for listening today.
Thanks, Brian, and all the best in 2012.
Thank you.